Y'all.
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 I said that for Ray.
Thank y'all very much this morning. Thank y'all.
Where are you at again,
Cutting
Ray?
the sleeves, cutting the sleeves out of my shirt today so I can show these ripped up arms at the gym, bro.
Hey, you should.
Yeah.
So I have a client of mine that's interested in flying, and we talk often about flying and things like that. And yesterday he was asking me what I thought happened in Kobe's crash, because somewhere along the line I told him I always like there's on YouTube or there's reports, NTSB reports that you can read about crashes. And um, I said, as far as I could tell, I mean, there was the pilot had an accountability problem, which was the conditions really shouldn't have been flown in. And as a pilot, you have a fly, no fly decision making uh, process. And he might have had an enormous amount of stress with VIP clients to get to a game, and then you don't hold yourself accountable to your standards, and then you go into what we would say is a very marginal sort of marginal weather, and beyond marginal, it was very um, complicated weather. Um, and then so you break your standards, you go against your process, your decision making, and you fly, and then you have that accident. That's how I saw it. Now, I read that report many years ago, but that was my take from it, and it just got me thinking about, often in my work, and a lot of a lot of us do the same thing. We have a lot of opportunity to be flexible with our standards, and then it's probably most often that's where it comes back to bite us, right? Like when we have somebody that wants to sell a house and they want a certain number, and we know that number is impossible. We should have a process where we, you know, get them back into reality, and there's usually a lot of risk by holding ourselves. Like in those situations, we risk losing a client, and we're hoping we can get this overpriced listing and then get it, work it back down. But any of you guys recall anything recent that had negative impact on you, but it felt good because you kept to your standards, held yourself accountable to doing the right thing that, you know, might not have been, the hopeful, like there was downside to it, but also the upside that you didn't break your standards.
Absolutely. I have something really recent with this insurance company that I started about 6 months ago. I had a partner in it. And the guy used to come in, and I mean, you'd see him at like 9:30. He'd come walk. He wouldn't walk in the door until after 9 a.m. And he would leave always at you would never see him after 5 p.m. around. And that's okay if he's doing the work, right? But he wasn't really putting the work in on it, and you know, he just wasn't the guy. And I had to like cut it, and he tried to argue with me about some things, and I told him, I said, look, man, that's it. Because I've been doing this for 18 years, not so I can argue with Chris Stanley at at 10 o'clock when I have a 10:30 and I have a calendar. So go ahead and pack your stuff up. This is it. And it hurt me because when you do that, people run around this little tiny town we live in, and they're like, oh, he treats people poorly, he's bad. Like, but anybody who knows me, they know better than that. So, but in the short term, I know a few people probably heard it, but I guess that's the only thing I could think of that would affect me negatively. But at the end, I have a standard. You're supposed to be part of my team and my business. and you're not meeting that standard, you got to go. You can you can adapt. Yeah, I'll give you the opportunity, but if you won't make those changes that are necessary to move forward in a professional and
It's so big.
a successful way of living, you got to go.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it in the employment paradigm, I know Ron. Rob. I don't know if you have employees, but I know it can be challenging, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things. One, it could be on the family front, when it comes to being accountable. My oldest wants to do something. There was an issue recently, nothing life shattering, but there was a consequence, and he didn't want to deal with the consequence. So the reality was I was not budging because it was below the standards of the way that we handle ourselves with our family. And again, it was nothing huge, but there was a certain standard, and it wasn't acceptable. So he had to deal with the consequence. I could have given in because it wasn't the end of the world, but I didn't. And the result of it could be what, he likes me less. Well, that's the reality. I'm the parent, he's the child. So something minor that it does carry to that, the accountability part. Because I could have easily said, you know what, it's okay, Kline. Just next time, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But that wasn't the path. Otherwise, there could have been a different consequence for, the standard and the way that we, carry ourselves as a family. So
we had a person that worked with us that a contractual relationship. So I wasn't the employer, but they worked in our organization, and they white lied to lied often, but it was really around things that were not it was just like something the person did by nature, but the person was very charismatic and fun, entertaining, but there's always like these little lies, right? And then there was this one elaborate lie that was unnecessary and to everybody, and we were always like on the fence of like, oh God, this, like what do we do? Do we try and continue to try and develop and get rid of that, what I would consider a pretty bad habit, because they were newish, but had a lot of potential, I think, if properly focused and got rid of some bad habits, which this person did. But then this one just was like too much. So I said, hey, sorry, we're done. Can no longer work together. Good luck. This person went somewhere new, set up an Instagram account and bashed, basically said, I've been saved from suffering. Anybody else suffering too, please join us, and it was such a propped up facade of bullcrap, and that was one of the reasons that, like, in our industry, I had to like sort of pull back out of the propped up facade of bullshit that are like different events and things. Like, I'm like, it's just the person did very little business, super complicated, and then completely bullshitted what happened, and the story's crazy. The lie to 15 people was so bizarre, and anyways, it's funny. I think where he ended up was so excited to have gotten an agent from us that they were gonna like spin it into like they saved this person from suffering. Which is funny because we saved ourselves from suffering, and I don't know. I just find it hilarious.
It's interesting, like the person's perspective too. In my situation, I can't speak for yours, but it's probably the same. But it's like their position on it and their perspective on it is it's just so limited, and it's just like refusing to accept the truth and responsibilities and accountability and the
Comfortably
sacrifices that it takes to get over the top in this business and in any business and in life. People crack me up
proudly
with that stuff.
proudly mediocre and not flexible and can't look in the mirror. And yeah, so
Or they're looking out the window. They never look in the mirror. They always look out the window. It's always something out there that's the problem. It's never the person in the mirror. That's what I've
Right.
found, and it's having to identify and call somebody out on it. They say that the strength of an organization or a team is, basically predicated on the worst behavior that the leader is willing to tolerate. And it's whether they're an independent contractor or an employee, you really just have to say, these are the standards. This is what we do. You don't have to make emotional decisions when you make data decisions. You usually either you have a process problem or you have a people problem, right? If the person truly doesn't know the process, then you go back to process. If they don't want to follow the process, then you have a people problem. If they're doing it, it's really quite simple. I think people overcomplicate it, and if you bring it back on point enough and hold them accountable to what they're supposed to do and why you're on that journey together, then you'll be successful, right? But life's too short for one-way relationships. It's better to cut and move on.
sometimes it's easier said than done, right?
Well, yeah, but sometimes it's that passive aggressive, nature. Like you don't want to bring it up because you don't want to have the hard conversation, and it's like, hey, you're not hitting those numbers, but maybe you would hit those numbers if you applied yourself a little bit more. Tell me more about that. What's up, right? Like just ask, be curious.
Good talk. See you guys tomorrow morning.
All right, man.
All right,
Have a
guys.
great day.
Good one.